Okay, so I'm Rick Lewis. Good to see some familiar faces again. I lead the software defined and cloud group for HPE, and I brought with me a guest today, my GM for the HPE OneSphere business, which is Weilin Zhang here.
Yeah, Waylon Jong, lead new stack. OneSphere.
Yeah.
They were calling me the new stack guy for the last couple of months, so I'm trying to get used to the new name.
We're all kind of still getting used to calling it by the real brand name HPE OneSphere, so forgive us for that. But anyway, usually what I do, and like I said, good to see a bunch of familiar faces here. Usually what I'll do is a little bit of just a high-level overview of what we're here at Discover doing. I know some of you probably saw some of the announcements or all the things that have been going on, but maybe I'll start at a high level. So we've been on this journey simplifying hybrid IT for our customers to help them in their digital transformation. And what we have concluded in that journey is one, that the world is hybrid and we expect it to be hybrid for at least as far as we can tell. And so that means that customers are going to be living in a multi-cloud environment. And so we've been really helping simplify the on-premises version of that multi-cloud environment with products like HPE OneView, which transforms your infrastructure into software-defined infrastructure, with products like SimpliVity, our hyperconverged solution, with products like Synergy, our composable solution, the only one on the market and leading the industry there. And so we've taken leaps to simplify on-premises environments, and we're continuing to invest and going full steam there. But what we had theorized about 3 years ago when we started the HPE OneSphere development, and what we it all came together, and we said this is really where we want to go a couple of years ago, and then we were pedal to the metal to get the product out. What we had concluded is that simplifying on-prem is not enough for our customers. If they exist in a multi-cloud environment, we need to simplify the whole multi-cloud experience. And so what does that mean? Well, that means a few things. That means that we have to help manage their on and off-prem environments and do that in a way that is really simple and straightforward and allows them to make good choices. So that means we had to give insights into what workloads are running where, what's it costing, what's the utilization in those different spaces. And that was a really important conclusion. But there were a couple of other things, and that is we really felt like the tension in the businesses was often between IT and the developers. And the developers were saying, look, the only way I can get a certain experience to do development is if I go to one specific cloud vendor or something like that. And we said, why is that the case? You ought to be able to do that wherever you want and be able to grab services and have a simple experience, whether it's on or off-prem. So we added a developer environment. We call it OneSphere Projects, which is a multi-tenant kind of workspace-based environment with a service catalog, so that developers can develop utilizing services and capabilities across all clouds, not just their on-prem, not just their off-prem, but they're tailored to the specific environment, those services. And we concluded those are really good things, and we need to make IT ops continuously more simple. So what we said is we got to make this super easy to install. In fact, no installation would be ideal, and so super easy to install, really easy to set up private cloud environments and bridge those to public cloud environments. And so what we did is we implemented it as a software as a service. So you don't have to buy hardware to come up on OneSphere. You don't have to install some software package. You just basically sign up for our subscription service, log in, and give it a little bit of a pointer to where your existing clouds are, and it goes at it and figures all that out. So for most of our customers, those existing clouds are really virtualization clusters, and they call them their private cloud, but they're not really a private cloud. What they are is a virtualization cluster. But HPE OneSphere automatically recognizes that VM estate, pulls it in, and gives it the capabilities of a cloud. So multi-tenancy, the ability to scale resources, the ability to do more deployment models than just VMs, and those kinds of capabilities. So OneSphere is a big strategic leap for the company, and we're really proud of driving in that direction. But at the same time, it's really an extension of the kind of thinking that we were doing on composability. So if you think of composing resources to given workloads in a Synergy chassis, if you just do a higher level of abstraction and you say, well, what if those resources lived in different clouds, whether they're on-prem or off-prem clouds, you can think of composing those resources. And that's the mental model we took. It's not implemented exactly like that, but doesn't matter. That's kind of the experience that we're delivering to a set of customers. So we've had a beta program going on with that HPE OneSphere for a few months. Had a couple of those customers on stage here at HPE Discover Madrid, and they are extremely happy. The two that are on stage here are DreamWorks Animation and Hudson Alpha Institute, and we had another one that we disclosed in some of our earlier press stuff and all that, which was Optio Data. All beta customers for HPE OneSphere. We have more beta customers than that, including one very large oil company. We'll kind of leave it at that. We have one very large manufacturing company. We have several mid-market players that are in the beta and kind of that type of thing. I can't remember if there's somebody I'm leaving out, but you know, we're not doing a 150 customer beta program. We're doing kind of, you know, tens beta program, and pretty happy with the results that we're seeing there. So anyway, it was our big announcement from my group, the Software Defined and Cloud group, but it's not the only thing that's going on. I want to make a couple of comments. So our SimpliVity platform has fantastic momentum. We're at over 2,000 customers now. I know I've spoken to most of you about that before. Over 2,000 customers, growing faster than the market and continuing to expand on the roadmap. It's all completely integrated into HPE now, and really happy. R&D roadmap, full speed ahead, and going as fast as we can on new features. The latest introduction on our SimpliVity platforms is our Gen 10 capabilities. So we have the enhanced security of the Gen 10 per Alliance, the root of trust stuff that's included in your Gen 10 per Alliance. That's available now in SimpliVity. We've also expanded the number of price points that we hit, kind of the configurations from more small ones and more extra large kind of ones. So we're spreading out that product line so we hit more spots for our given customers. Really happy about that. And just overall, SimpliVity is a really strong offering for us. It's hyper-converged, and what's really cool about it is it does, you know, via virtualization clusters better than anyone else. Now you can put OneSphere on it, turn it into a real private cloud. OneSphere recognizes SimpliVity extremely easy, imports it, and you know, we're the only people with a path to composability in their hyper-converged platform, and we're working feverishly on taking the SimpliVity data fabric into our Synergy composable platform. So that's hyper-converged status. Synergy, let's talk a little bit about Synergy. Synergy has fantastic momentum. We're seeing, we've got, I think, over 1,100 customers now with Synergy in their shop. We started shipping Synergy in volume last December, January, right at the end of December, right after we were out here in EMEA for that Discover. And that had, the momentum there has been astonishing. In fact, if you look at it compared to any new infrastructure category play, you know, and I'll name, like when we did the original Blades, when you look at when UCS came out, when you look at some of the converged offerings like VCE, hyper-converged, you know, like the Nutanixes and that stuff, Synergy's got more momentum in the first year than any of those new category platforms. So composability is taking off for us. It's a huge opportunity for the company, and a lot of buzz around that. So we're actually, you know, from maybe let's say 3 years ago, I did my first blogging session out here. We were talking a lot about futures and what we were going to do. You know, here at Discover right now, we're talking a whole lot about what we've done in all the categories of hyperconverged, in composable, and in in multi-cloud management now, and we are not taking our foot off the gas pedal. We're innovating like crazy. The team is firing on all cylinders, and it's a really fun time to be in the organization. So I think that's all I was going to say about kind of our status. I know you guys always have a rich variety of questions for me. I always enjoy this session. It's very energizing, so I'm super looking forward to that. And in case any of the questions on OneSphere are beyond my knowledge, I only have a certain sphere of knowledge, forgive the pun. I have Wayland here to help. I couldn't resist. I'm still programming myself on our recently announced brand name of it, so we're good.
What do you guys think of the brand name? What do you guys think of the brand name?
Not bad. A lot better than New Stack. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It fits well with OneView.
Yeah, I think the thing that I like to talk about when we talk about OneSphere is that it's more than just an individual product.
Use this one? Oh, right on there.
What's that? The way I like to talk about OneSphere is that it's more than just an individual product, because if you look at OneSphere in isolation, it's an interesting product, but it's compelling when you bring the rest of the portfolio along with OneSphere. You look at some of the acquisitions we did from SimpliVity to Cloud Cruiser, and then recently our Cloud Technology Partners acquisition, and you can see that the company is really kind of shifting towards a services-led, outcome-led, business outcome-focused company. And OneSphere is really a big part of that, but it really drags along the rest of the portfolio because, we can compose synergy, we can, work with SimpliVity, we can bring along, the rest of the infrastructure, but we can also be relevant to those customers that are going through their cloud transformation. And longer term, that's some place where we have to be for strategic reasons. We have to be part of that journey. And Cloud Technology Partners, if you look at some of the product offerings they have, so they're a services company, but they actually have products that they sell along with their initial engagement. So they have this thing called a minimum viable cloud. They have a continuous cost controls and a continuous governance product. And all of those are backed by small amount of IP that they've developed and also partnerships that they have. So OneSphere can be a kind of a key tool that they use to bring into those engagements. And it uses, we can use that as an initial engagement to, help size and recommend and consult, but it's also something to stay behind and be part of a core set of processes for those customers that are trying to manage their hybrid estate. So it's not only a new technology and a new business model, but it's also, really kind of a core strategic piece of everything. And it kind of, you can really see how everything fits together from a strategy perspective. So that part is really exciting.
Yeah, sure. Let's open to question and answer.
I have a question. So you mentioned that the client that are evaluating the alpha or beta program on the OneSphere is end customers. How I see it more is service providers that could really benefit the product. You didn't mention that. So how do you HPE sees that?
I'm really glad you brought that up. We definitely have service providers not only interested but also involved in beta for OneSphere, and I couldn't agree with you more. It definitely is a benefit to them. If you think of, I'll do it by extension. We have Synergy is very popular in service providers today, and that's because they can immediately provision and reprovision based on whatever service it is they're providing. So, for example, we have one service provider that's offering Hadoop as a service and HANA as a service in the same Synergy box, and as things flex, they can, put more resources on this or that. Well, again, kind of like I said a little bit earlier, they're looking to take OneSphere and be able to do that same kind of flexing on and off prem now for a set of customers. So, very powerful solution for them. Yeah, glad you brought that one up.
So you mentioned that OneSphere is a brand new product. From launch or from start to launch, is Just take us through the life cycle, development life cycle. Is it piecing of certain products that HP owned or developed, or is it a brand new build?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that one as well. It is a piecing together, but a lot of from scratch development. And the things that you would guess that we pieced together aren't the things we pieced together. So we took a brand new approach. We had assets like CSA and OO and those things. We decided that those are really good for what they're good for, which is traditional IT operations management and application lifecycle management kind of functions for the traditional app world. And with OneSphere, we bias toward where the market is going, which is really the new style of application developed, the apps that spin, once every day or multiple times per day, and constant, continuous, CI/CD processes and DevOps processes, where those others are geared for, I'm going to spin this app once a year, and then I'm going to lifecycle manage that app, and then I'm going to do another big bang. And so we decided those are really good for that use case. This needs to be able to do the new, bias towards the new, but then we didn't want to just say, but it's only for container only or cloud native only. We knew the market is still, most of the money is still in running VMs, virtualized applications, and bare metal applications. So we made it work for both, but it's biased to be able to do that in kind of a new way. Now, to answer your question about, so where did you get code? We've been working on it about 3 years, so we've had time to develop quite a bit of code. It was a pretty small team for that first year, and then we ramped like crazy in the second year and have been coding like crazy. But we took not only a DevOps model, kind of developing it the way we expect people to use it is the way I would describe it. But we took a startup model consistent with all the startups that you see today out there. They don't say, oh, I'm going to develop a new package, and they sit down and they put 10 guys in a room and they don't look up anything or find anything. They go out and find, okay, what are the starting points? What are the things that I can wrap in here? So if you look under the covers inside of OneSphere, there's Kubernetes that's doing container orchestration. There's OneStack code that's doing VM orchestration. There's Cloud Cruiser code. We bought Cloud Cruiser, which is a metering and analytics across public cloud. So a lot of the code is really about bringing together the best of some entities, doing that in an open way, doing that in a way that's a microservice-oriented kind of way and a SaaS model kind of way, so that we can continue to rev and update this rather than having to say, okay, it's time to buy Rev 2.0. It's a true SaaS platform, and did that in an open way so that we can sub in and out the different functionality and the pieces and that kind of capability. So if you look under the covers, there's a whole lot of open source and leverage code and acquired code and some partnering. And this is just the beginning for OneSphere. I expect that over time we're just going to increase that partnering and include more features and functionalities under the hood. Yep.
I have another question.
Sure, you can go again.
Yeah, so end-to-end management and as we see cloud management, so you're able to plug into AWS, Google, and the major names. In terms of the private cloud layer, is it HP centric, or does it work with other vendors, or is that not the visibility you're looking at?
It's another fantastic. You guys are really doing well here. It's really an important kind of distinction. So it works on HPE hardware. It also works on other hardware. We can discover VM clouds and import those in. But the key thing that you miss when you do that is the lifecycle management and the easy deployment kind of capabilities that we have included when you have our software-defined infrastructure under it. So what I mean by that is, for example, kind of the two dimensions, and I showed this on the main stage, and we've had it in the spotlights, but we show a demo where we completely provision your private cloud, ESX-based VM private cloud, except a true private cloud with service portal and multi-tenancy and all those capabilities. We will provision that from scratch on bare metal through to our Synergy platform from the SaaS portal. Just say, I want a private cloud that looks like this on that hardware. It's not existing there. It's not sitting there. So it automatically sends it down there, and then it reflects it in your cloud profile, your dashboard. Sorry. So that's an example of, we don't do that on other people's hardware. We're taking advantage of composability. We're taking advantage of some of the image streamer stuff. We're taking advantage of OneView and software defined. If you have a set of VMs running on a server and you show it, hey, here's where those are, those can be part of your private cloud pool. And we honestly don't care if they're on somebody else's hardware. It's just the experience is a lot more rich and a lot more automated. And I mentioned kind of putting down the private cloud capability or loading that. Then there's also kind of the lifecycle management side of it. As you know, we have industry-leading rich capabilities in terms of infrastructure automation, which is some of that private cloud stuff we just talked about, but also infrastructure management. So firmware updates and different operations, and seeing when a piece of hardware needs repaired, and some of the intelligence associated with that's built into OneView. That's accessible through that SaaS portal onto your private cloud. So you can actually do management that's connected to OneView, if you will. OneView's the on-prem thing that's doing the local stuff, but it's still through the SaaS portal. So
I can add to that. So think about it as your day zero operation, which is a lot of the kind of the heavy lifting of the ops. That takes advantage of our hardware and capabilities, whether it's OneView or Redfish or things that are related to HPE hardware. But the day one plus, which is all around collaboration, workspace, projects, service catalogs, and then all the business insights, that's capabilities that can go across any cloud platform. So it doesn't have to be HPE specific infrastructure.
The hard time I have understanding is, we have a product which is OneView. We announce a product which is OneSphere. A lot of similarities, or maybe not. But
just the level. Think level of the stack, right? OneView is doing infrastructure automation at the low level, flexing resources like how much compute, how much storage do I want against this specific workload. So think of that as kind of that IaaS and ops down in the hardware, if you will, where OneSphere is doing where are my clouds, what does it look like, what's the developer environment, what services are available, what's the multi-tenancy to get after this, what's my service portal to be able to provision from each of these clouds. So OneView is simplifying the on-prem private cloud actions. OneSphere is managing the multi-cloud management environment.
Last question, then I'll hand it over. So we talked about it at the beginning of the conversation, was around building OneSphere in order to really bring in those acquisitions or get a better global view. In terms of where did I go with that? In terms of the global view, how does it? I lost my train of thought. Too many questions.
It's okay. I'll read your mind and answer the question anyway. So how do you represent a global view of cloud assets? Is that the question?
That's a good
question.
And in terms of a go-to-market, that's what I wanted to ask. So in terms of go-to-market, so we understand why HP built it and want to get the global picture.
Yeah.
But in terms of go-to-market strategies, what's the major use case, or what's the use case that you're driving for that bigger program?
3 use cases that pop up all the time. One is IT wants to be a service provider to the rest of the business. For an enterprise, IT wants to be the service provider. Developers need public cloud stuff, I've got that. Developers need on-prem infrastructure, I've got that. Developers want infrastructure as a service and want to be able to immediately provision, I've got that. So that's use case number 1. 2, DevOps transformation of enterprises. That's really a big journey for a lot of the customers, because they have to figure out, well, wait a minute, it's not how I manage my infrastructure today. I have developers who think DevOps means only in one cloud on one flavor, which locks me into a certain paradigm and a certain cost model, and that's the only place I can do DevOps. I don't get to do DevOps for my current VM environments or to deal with my old bare metal, my legacy applications. I want to be able to adopt one methodology and be able to do that. So DevOps transformation is a huge use case for this. And then really business efficiency is the third, meaning I already have gone through some of those transitions as a customer, or I'm still managing legacy only, but I want to have a more cloud-like model, and I want to be able to compare costs of, if I run a VM here on-prem, it's costs me this much and my utilization is this much. If I run it in AWS, it costs me that much. And here's what my cloud bill is going to be associated with that. So when we talk about surprise OpEx is what CFOs are trying to get rid of. A lot of them like shifting from CapEx to OpEx, but then that opens them up to, oh my God, look at the cloud bill this month. And we're trying to provide visibility so that they don't have that surprise OpEx. Those are the three key use cases. Okay?
Before the acquisition of SimpliVity, there was the HC 380, Hyperconverged 380.
Yes.
And there was a software stack called HCOE,
Yes.
Hyperconverged Operating Environment, which was a similar thing. It was a web-based console. I could request VMs from that HC 380 stack beneath it. I expected that this would be then the next big thing afterwards. Now it seems to be cloud-based instead of running locally.
We took a strategic shift, and it's interesting. My guest today actually managed that and is managing this, and it's intentional. And he can tell you exactly about the journey and why we decided, you know what, we want to do some of those things, but a better way to do that is SaaS, because we can expand the horizon from just an on-prem kind of hyper-converged only offering. So you want to say something about that?
Sure, yeah. As Rick mentioned, that HC380 and the HCOE stack was what I was responsible for. And think about OneSphere as an evolution of that. I wouldn't say that there's an abundance of code that we took across, but from an architectural standpoint, when we talk about the simplicity of VM vending, of having a single portal to look at your estate, all of those features are in OneSphere, but we took OneSphere beyond that, just the private cloud capabilities, and had it cover the entire hybrid estate. And that's the big difference. And when you talk about having a single portal for your entire hybrid estate, it made a lot of sense for it to be a SaaS portal. Because when customers want to have that data tone for their environment, they don't want to provision servers, they don't want to install software, they want this to just be up and running, and they want to attach their infrastructure to it, and they want to just go. They want to adopt and go. So it was really an evolution of the HC380 concept and HCOE, and the fact that we can now expand across Synergy and SimpliVity, across the entire product line and your hybrid estate, your public cloud and your private cloud, it's a much more powerful solution. And so, yeah, there was a lot of the same inspiration. Architecturally, there's similarities as well. Both were written in Go, and both are microservice-based architectures that were, with Kubernetes as the orchestration framework. But they're two different products in their grand vision of how they viewed the problem they were trying to address.
Because all the HC380 sold in Belgium and Holland. That was because I was giving the demos. I had the simulator on my laptop, so I gave the demos. Customers loved it, and they bought HC380 for that. Yep. So now I will need also access in some kind of way to OneSphere, so I can keep on selling HPE gear.
The best part about OneSphere is that you don't need the demo on your laptop. You can just have a web portal. You can just have an internet connection, and you can have a POC up and running in minutes.
Okay, I'll give you my email address for an NFR demo, whatever license thingy.
Ring the bell. We have one sale already. Okay.
And NFR demos, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Thank you. And thanks for the work on that.
So how do developers actually interact with OneSphere? Is this going to be their gateway to all clouds and on-prem? Is it just going to be the gateway to the on-prem, and they continue to spin up resources from their IDE into Azure or AWS?
Since Waylon's team is actually doing the development and we're developing it the way we're using it, I'll just let him.
Sure. Yeah, so we have this concept of personas, which is essentially a role. And there's three kind of main personas that we're coming out with in the first version of the product. There's the IT admin persona, and that's the role that's going to be responsible for rolling out infrastructure, lifecycle management, maintenance of private cloud infrastructure. There's a line of business role, which is more focused around carving out projects and quotas and curating service catalogs and also looking at real-time costs. And then there's the consumer of IT or the developer persona. And the developer is going to essentially have their own project that they can manage, and it's all self-service. So they're going to have a single way to provision workloads, whether it's, their project will have a service catalog that's inherently hybrid. So they're going to have a set of curated applications that, can run on AWS, on Azure, on, on-prem VMware or KVM or Hyper-V. And then they're going to be able to provision those workloads through a single pane of glass on any of those parts of their estate. And so the beauty of that is it reduces a lot of the friction between the traditional I&O organization and the developers and the consumers of IT, because there's no longer that long process of, I have to provision a ticket and I've got to submit it, and if that VM that the project is requesting wasn't forecasted, it might be weeks or months before they actually get that provision. We can the I&O organization can pre-provision all of that capability, and when the project is running out of capacity, they can see all of that ahead of time, and then they have all of the lifecycle management to be able to easily add capacity. You can pop in another blade in a Synergy, you can add another node to SimpliVity, and then you can bring all of those resources online and carve that out to the project and allow them to expand the resources that they're working with. So it's truly a fluid set of resources that you can allocate to the project.
So I guess, but from a developer's perspective, those might not be the concerns that they have. They have a place where they're provisioning out to maybe part of a pipeline or a workflow.
Sure.
Are you forcing them through?
No, so we're not.
tool?
Yeah, so we don't want to take away their tools. So we want to let them use the tools that they're used to, and so it's not trying to put a heavyweight framework around the developers. So if they have Jenkins that they want to use, and that's the way they provision their applications, they can use that. If they've got Terraform and they want to use Terraform, then they can use that. We just want to give enough of the governance for the IT organization to be able to put some guardrails around how developers are using the platform.
Yeah, those services are inherently hybrid, like Waylon said, and they can be across any of the clouds, right? You can say, if there's some service they want that's only in AWS, it's only in that cloud. Through IT, they can just say, we're going to need that service. They agree on it, and it's all there. It kind of gives this collaboration a little bit of a boost of, hey, let's talk about that one. Is that safe? Is that something, and yes, let's go use that. What are the alternatives? So it's supposed to be an enablement, not a constraint, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then you just click it. You don't have to go hunt for it. It's right there. It's your environment.
Yeah, and I've talked to several customers here at Discover that they have shadow IT happening in their environment, right? I mean, there's spend going on that they don't have any controls over, and there's no way for them to enforce any sort of governance or policy or security. So this is a way for them to do that without getting in the way of developers.
You opened with services providers. Love this. You talk about DevOps and so forth. What about solutions vendors that are building solutions for the HPE environments? Is there any kind of branding? Is there any value about saying I've got OneSphere inside, outside, or whatever? Does it help the enterprise knowing that these things are better?
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of those conversations as well. People that want to, white label OneSphere essentially, and this is the whole conversation around system integrators, because there's a lot of system integrators that are looking at OneSphere as a tool for them to basically have deep engagements with their customers.
Right.
So that's a change that I think HPE is going through, is that we're really anxious to work with system integrators, and I think OneSphere is a really good way for us to do that, and it allows them to differentiate their solutions. So that's a commitment we have.
Thank you.
So another question for you. I've seen a lot of information around discovering shadow IT with the product since it's been announced. How does it actually help you discover shadow IT? Because the demo I saw, you actually have to go and link your accounts to the public cloud.
Yeah, and that might be a misconception. There's no automatic asset management discovery of shadow IT. We're not going out and surfing the internet and finding all of the hidden accounts that people are using. So that's not something we're trying to do.
Yeah, and we haven't, in our briefings and that, we haven't said that. I think people may assume it. If you have the master account on a public cloud and you're showing where things are spending a lot of money. Maybe if something pops up, you have visibility into saying, ooh, something's spending a lot, I should at least go look. I know one of our lead architects uses the analogy of the home phone bill. You may not know exactly what the kid that's offending and using up all your data is doing or what he's surfing or whatever, but you know which kid to go talk to because you went over on your bill and they use 10x everybody else. And so maybe that's kind of where that conversation came from, but it's not it would just be from showing good analytics of all of your public cloud asset spend so that you know where to go sniffing. If it's small and not measurable, it's not going to show up to where you'd find it, right? But if somebody's spending 10x what everybody else is, probably would get readily evident.
Nobody else has a question. I'll ask this one. Any idea around pricing or how you're going to model pricing for it?
We're still working the final pricing, but we know the model. And you can fill in a few more details beyond this, but it's a subscription base. We're selling 135
Term, yep.
135 year terms, and it's based on per core and an equivalent in the public cloud. You can say a little bit more about that. The only thing we don't know is the exact number because we're still debating until we launch. That's the beauty of a SaaS platform. We can kind of choose right up to the end, and we're having those conversations with customers. But we know the model and how we're doing it.
Yeah, it's a subscription license. The subscription is 1, 3, and 5 year term. It includes support. So support is bundled into that service. It has benefits for the longer term, obviously. And it's what we call a hybrid license unit. So it's tied to either a physical core, so however many virtual machines you can run on that, that set of cores, or 20 vCPUs in the cloud. And you can have any combination therein. So if you have workloads that are running on-prem, but then you want to move those to the cloud, that same HLU can cover that workload. So the equivalent of 20 vCPUs or the equivalent of essentially a dual socket server is what an HLU covers.
And we will obviously announce pricing as we enter the market with it in January.
Talking more about the security aspects around this product, how could you address the conversation with not only a CIO or CTO, with the CSO about auditing and whatever runs around this platform?
Yep. Yeah, so I'll address that. So from a security standpoint, the first thing to realize is that the SaaS service is a control plane. So we don't actually have the data resident in the SaaS management system. It's really metadata. The second is that when you as a customer create an account, we have our automation actually deploys a VPC and deploys a private instance of those services for that customer. So you as a customer will have amco.onesphere.com as your URL, and that's your private instance of OneSphere. The second is that we have all of the rich auditing, so audit logs, and we have very specific personnel that manage every customer engagement. For your on-prem infrastructure, we have a secure gateway that has private keys that are deployed specifically for that customer. We don't expose any additional ports. It's all TLS protected, both on the front and the back end.
All metadata is encrypted on both sides.
Data at rest.
Yep.
So security is a big, obviously, when you talk about what customers we're trying to address the mid and large enterprise customers, because they're the ones that are going through the cloud stress. So it's the enterprise customers, and their enterprise security requirements are paramount, and that's really how we built the product from the ground up with that in mind.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, it's exciting.
What do you think? I mean, really, I think that the thing when we're hanging out with a lot of CIOs here at Discover and a few developers here and there, this typically tends to be more of a IT shop kind of audience that's here. But this notion around enhancing the collaboration instead of having it be kind of combative or whatever is really appealing, right? Where everybody's kind of working together for the same goal, and the public cloud and the private cloud and all of that is really about it's just more resources and more tools to use to solve business problems and to do digital transformation. And it kind of gets everybody on the same team. You're looking at the same data, you're looking at the same services. You know, it's not like, well, we're off over doing this because we're frustrated with this or that. That's the thing that really seems to resonate like crazy and is a strategic conversation for these customers.
Yeah, I think it's cool technology, but a couple of us were having discussions last night. What this is really kind of reinforcing in some of our minds, Rick, is that this really is posturing for the enterprise, big enterprises. I don't think there's any play in here for small mom and pop, small and medium businesses. I see this really reinforcing the message that HPE Enterprise is the enterprise. So that's your market going.
Yeah, but the other thing I would make a point of is that there is a robo enterprise use case that's very interesting because that's an at scale, kind of problem to go solve. So think about, a large logistics company that has 1,000 stores that have to all be managed. So having something that runs as a SaaS service and can work with our SimpliVity platform, for example, and be able to do global DR at scale, with many, many remote offices or small branch offices or remote sites, that's a remote office use case that's enterprise scale. And those are also, things that we think we're uniquely positioned to go address.
Which, by the way, is a real sweet spot for SimpliVity, sitting with Synergy. Synergy in the data center, SimpliVity at those remote office or branch office kind of environments, and this will help us with that.
Yeah.
All right. Did we basically answer it all?
Why don't you talk about the edge? Talk about it a little bit in your keynote.
Yeah, so I hinted to some of the thoughts moving forward. You see a lot of stats out there now that within 2 years, 70% of the data will be generated at the edge. We're shifting from an era of the data is numbers and all of those studies and database kind of things, and into more, it's really sensors and IoT devices and all of that capability. We envision a future where all of that's going to need management, and it's going to need kind of a centralized SaaS kind of model to be able to maintain those devices in order to be able to aggregate what's going on there, manage their performance and things like that. So it's an intriguing area. We're not offering that today, but some people call that fog or mist or whatever. But we definitely are thinking a lot about how this could help us in that arena, and particularly since our strategy is make hybrid IT simple. Our HPE strategy is make hybrid IT simple, power the intelligent edge, and provide the services and capabilities to help customers transform. You can see, boy, those things all fit together really well. So we envision a future where this plays in the edge as well.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I mean, think about edge as being a data problem, right? Because you're collecting data, but that data eventually has to be analyzed somewhere centrally. So, when you talk about edge, it's not a wearable device. It might be a small IT data center that's on an oil rig or out in the field. And that's, as Rick is saying, is fog computing, because that hardware is outside of the public cloud, but it's collecting data that has to eventually be centralized somewhere. So, you look at SimpliVity and what it can do in terms of built-in replication that's dedupe aware, that's, data optimized, that's, the ability to replicate just enough of the data to be able to get the meaning, back to where it can be analyzed. So SimpliVity as a data transport for the edge is something that we're looking at pretty heavily.
I've got a leading question for you, if you want one.
I really like the looks on everybody's faces. Lots of good, you look inspired in thought, like, wow, this thing looks like really cool and could really help. So anyway, that's my assessment. I don't know. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, leading question. So you talk about the three kind of personas we've talked about in the past. You talk about it really kind of your group going into more of a software role. explained about how this is all working. Do you want to mention about our new dev community that we've started this spin up?
Yeah, why don't you, HPE
absolutely.
Dev?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to go big with the dev community at KubeCon coming up, right? So, you know, one thing we're trying to do with the developer community is that if you look at Composable and you look at OneView, there's a lot of development that people have done and tooling around those products, right? Because Composable and Synergy is essentially an API for the rack. And you know, for people to actually take advantage of that, they're writing code, they're writing applications that take advantage of that composability. But what a lot of our customers want to do is they want to collaborate on that. So they'll put applications up on GitHub, but they have no way to collaborate with other people within that small segment of the community that's also doing work in that area. And you know, that collaboration might be sharing IP. That might eventually be monetizing some of it, you know, maybe a enterprise app store. So the developer community is all about encouraging development around our APIs and around our enablement of HPE products, and to bring those developers together so they can collaborate, they can share. You know, it's not trying to replace GitHub, but it's, you know, the pointers and it's the crossroads to get to where all that content is, and to have those developers be able to work within a community that can help build more momentum around some of the enablement we have for composability. So I think it's a really powerful concept. It's something that we're getting a lot of really good feedback on. Hudson Alpha is a really good example of that. You saw them on stage with Rick. They've developed a lot of content for Synergy. And they want to talk to other IT groups to find out, you know, what other people have done and how they can maybe leverage some of the tooling that they've developed, and also kind of share the stuff that they've built. So developer community is going to be a really big thing for us, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I think have we announced branding and all that stuff, or is that at KubeCon?
Yeah.
I think,
Is it? Okay. Yep, HP Dev.
You mentioned that there are around 1,100 Synergy deployments. Also in Belgium, I see deployments over there, but it's more a C7000 replacement project than really going to composability. How do you see it worldwide level? How much companies are really using it for fast deployment? And how many people do it as a replacement of hardware?
Depends on where the customers are in their journey. I mentioned, you know, service providers, they're all the way over. I talked about Hadoop as a service and HANA as a service in one particular case. And we've got multiple service providers doing that. Where people are in the internal service providers kind of transformation
stuff.
Yeah, but more, you know, if really their objective right now, if the mode that they're in is just about efficiency and running VMs, Synergy is a fantastic platform just for that. It has a 30% TCO advantage over UCS. It has a 30% TCO advantage over our blades, our original, you know, our architecture. And so if you just want to run it as a giant virtualization cluster, or honestly, a lot of those blades go out as bare metal servers as well. Almost, you know, it used to be half. It's probably a little less than half now, but it does a fantastic job at those, and the price performance beats anything out there on the market. So it's great for that. I would say if I looked at the customer segmentation, when we started, it was probably 80-20. It's probably getting closer to 60-40 of people. But remember, even if a customer buys it saying, I'm only doing virtualization and bare metal today, part of the value proposition for them is this is a data center play. I mean, we have C7000 data centers out there that, you know, we started shipping C7000 in 2006. It's 12 years. So it's a data center play. 12 years later, who knows what you're going to be doing with the Synergy. It's really nice to know that, well, 12 years from now, most of these enterprises are going to be deploying containers. They really will, right? And so they know I'm buying into the future, and I know that I'll be able to do that. So even if the mix is, you know, wherever it is in that range, still biased, they're still buying the value proposition.
So for on-premises deployments, what are you doing with OneSphere to help cloudify on-premises? Bring the service catalog, and how does that work? are you exposing things from public cloud in your service catalog? Or are you
Yes,
actually doing-
absolutely. It is a hybrid catalog. In fact, I think we might even call it the hybrid catalog. I don't know what we call it in the thing, but it basically is services. Public cloud services are part of the catalog that's in there. Multi-tenancy is another thing. We talked about projects or whatever. You have your own pre-provisioned workspace. Scaling resources. Remember, Synergy can scale resources. So if you add true IaaS, if you ask for, I want this much stuff to be deployed against this workload, you can do that in your private cloud. So those are pretty big capabilities that are beyond just, I want to run 2,000 VMs or something, you know what I mean? So it's a big leap.
That's on premises. That's the problem. Is there's a lot of workflow configuration setup required to operate on premises IT as a cloud. So I was curious if there's anything more that you're bringing to the table with OneSphere.
Well, we talked about the instant deployment of, for most of our customers to say, I'm going to go get some hardware, get some rack servers or whatever, and I'm going to put an ESX virtualization cluster, we'll call that the old school private cloud. I'm going to do that. That's a multi-week process. In fact, we had some in my spotlight session where customers were saying, that used to take me weeks to do. After I got through all the financial approvals, ordered it, you guys shipped it to me. I'm just saying it shows up. It's on my dock. That's that kind of thing. If you think about Synergy now, you say, well, I needed more storage and compute. You go plug compute, if it's on your dock, you go plug it into the chassis, plug it in, it recognizes, knows that compute's available, it's ready to go. Through OneSphere, you say, I want to image a ESXi virtualization cluster, the old school private cloud, instantly done in clicks. So it's just way, way simpler to kind of deal with setting up that private cloud. More thoughts on that?
Yeah, and from a workload provisioning perspective, if you want to put a VM on your hybrid estate, you have one way to do that, whether that's on-prem on ESX or on-prem on Hyper-V or on AWS. So we were talking about the HC380 HCOE and the VM vending concept. That's essentially a vending at scale with hybrid. So there's no different APIs you need to learn. There's no different way of doing it. It's basically normalized across your entire hybrid estate.
I like that. I know you used to use that word, normalization across the hybrid estate. So the experience is the same when you're vending, when you're developing, when you're looking at the costs. It's kind of a normalization thing so that the experience is the same. Oh, yikes. Yeah, I'm going to be on camera here in about 5 minutes, so we should probably wrap up. So I want to thank, I guess I'm on camera now, so we'll just stay here. I'm on camera all day. So really want to thank you guys. These sessions have always been really useful, and we go back and talk about some of the thoughts and questions and feedback, and just really excited and proud to be here with all of the things. So much momentum in SimpliVity and in Synergy, things that we had been talking about we were going to do. They're all here. They have great momentum. We were talking about how we're going to do multi-cloud management. Now it's here. Next time I come back, we're going to be talking about how much momentum we have on that, what the roadmap is. So it's a great time to be in software defined and cloud. Thank you all, and thanks to my guest, Waylon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.